Dr. Eric Williams said that the future of Trinidad and Tobago lies in our children's book bags. But I wonder what he would do if he was to come back in 2025 and notice that our children are more interested in walking around with $500 backpacks with no books in it, and that our education institutions are no longer a place of learning, but a fight club. Now, the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar has decided to take a no-nonsense stance where bullying in schools is concerned. This would have happened after several cases of bullying would have arisen within the last few days, but most importantly, a rise in bullying under the last government administration, which was there for the last 9 years. And now it has led to the former Minister of Education, Mrs. Nyan Gadsby-Dolly, coming out and condemning the approach that Kamla Persad-Bissessar wants to use. But it has also sparked conversation, bringing PNM mouthpieces into the conversation spaces. And I don't really agree with the narrative that some of them are pushing, especially the narrative that they're pushing where they're trying to see that Kamla's sole purpose for doing this is to get a reason to lock up Black people children or Afro-based children in the Trinidad community, and somewhat creating a pipeline to funnel African children in the form of criminals from school straight to adult jails. Now, let's have a listen to what one of the PNM mouthpieces would have had to say on this topic.
Kamla, as Minister of Education, also put an end to corporal punishment in schools. I remember when it happened, it wasn't something that I had a problem with either, because I felt that corporal punishment was a fallback from the colonial era, because we like to think that the only way to control people, to police people, to get people to do the things that need to be done is through physical force. And the thing is, we always tend to think that some people don't deserve physical force and other people do. And I'm not going to pretty things up anymore. We like to think that Black people is who deserve licks all the time. Black people deserve punishment. Black people actually have to be punished in order for them to do anything. That's how we think. That's part of our colonial mindset. And this government is tapping into that. This government is currently tapping into the idea we have that only poor Black children are involved and engaged in violent behavior, and so they need to be treated like criminals. All of that was there in the messaging on Thursday at that meeting.
Now, I don't agree with the narrative that is being spewed here. I think it's somewhat race baiting, and in some cases, even race whistling or dog whistling racial tendencies. Because let's be honest, there is, and let's be fair with this, Black people aren't the only bullies in school. And poor Black people aren't the only bullies in school. We are aware of that. We have bullies that are rich. We have bullies that are middle class. We have bullies that are Indian. We have bullies that are African. In some cases, we probably even have bullies that are Syrian or Chinese. But the question you need to ask yourself is this: who's in the majority? African, Black children are in the majority. They are the biggest set of bullies in school. And the common denominator with most of these children is that they come from poor communities or households with social issues. Now, she would have gone on to say further in her videos that this problem is because these children, their brains haven't been developed yet and they're not aware of what they're doing. I don't agree with that statement at all. These children are fully aware of what they are doing, because in most cases where bullying takes place, these children tend to plot these things out for days. They would get people to position themselves with cameras. In the last said incident, where the young lady was beaten to the point where her rib was fractured, her nose was broken, and her eyes had blood clots in it, these children planned and lured that young lady to the bathroom so that they can do their foul act. So it's not a case that these children brains aren't developed properly. These aren't the same children from me and your generation. These are 2025 Gen Z children who have access to all social media, all internet, and everything. They are fully aware of all the choices they are making. So let's not play smart with stupidness and try to see, well, they're not aware of what they're doing. But here it is. Somebody asked her a question. Why doesn't she focus on talking about the Black community and what is going on with their children? She went on to say that the problem in the Black community is that there's a lot of parents and children who are suffering from social issues. Have a listen.
Some people, when they have had deep, deep trauma in their lives, they resort to alcohol and drug abuse. So the drug abuse and the alcohol abuse has nothing to do with them just wanting to consume alcohol and drugs. It is that they're using drugs and alcohol as a coping mechanism for the pain that they're dealing with internally. And so when I meet children at the secondary level that are showing dysfunctional behavior, I'm usually quite clear that the parents themselves have experienced dysfunctional behavior, are dysfunctional adults, and so there's a particular cycle. So what do, Tony Jaimungal? Do you lock up everybody? Or do you begin as a society, as a government that is actually invested in improving a society, do you then start to fund efficiently and effectively counseling and therapy services in the country so that more people can access mental well-being services and begin to treat themselves for all of the trauma that they're dealing with? What do you think, Tony? What would be your approach? Lock up everybody? Expand the maximum security prison? Expand remand yard? Put more people in Carrera? Build an ex-prison? Is that what would be your solution? Because my solution would be to fund mental well-being services, make counseling more accessible to people, make therapy more accessible to people, remove the stigma that people have when it comes to going to counseling and seeking help. That's what my solution would be. I would ensure that the schools have more social workers. I would ensure that the school have more guidance counselors. I would also ensure that adults, so not just the children, the parents of the children, have more access to mental well-being services. That's me, Tony. I know that what I want to do, Tony, is come out and blame the parents and blame the children and say the parents should get locked up, the children should get locked up. And that's fine. After you lock them up, what? What happens, Tony, after you lock them up? Because lock up don't solve the problem. People don't stop being violent because they've been locked up. Children don't stop being violent because they've been expelled. So, Tony, when you are sitting with your friends, or you have a conversation and get past the lockup and get past the expulsion and answer among all yourselves, then what?
So she's correct. But my question is this. Your government has been there for the last 9 years, right? And they were there prior in the past. Social issues in the Afro-based community is not something that started today. And she goes on to say that the government and the ministry was trying to fix it. And I don't doubt that, because Stuart Young did say on his campaign trail, the government is learning. I don't know how much more years you all need to learn. You all had 9. If you all can't correct the problem in 9 years, then it means that what you all are doing isn't working. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Now, she would have put up these charts here saying that this is the template that the Ministry of Education has to deal with fighting in school. But this is where it gets interesting, and this is where my knowledge of this situation comes in. You see, a lot of you all might not know, but there's a term for bad schools in Trinidad and Tobago called focus schools. That is what the Ministry of Education deems schools that have high violence rate, poor education rates, and poor education standards, right? The problem in these schools aren't the teachers. The problem in the school are the children and the children's parents who are affiliated with the school. Focus schools have a different curriculum to regular school. Focus schools curriculum is designed to help the children who are underperforming in the school. But here's where the problem with focus school education comes in. Focus school education affects the children in the school who are actually performing and excelling. And the reason for that is the curriculum is built to help children who are progressing slower in school. But because the curriculum is taught across the board, you now have children who are way more intelligent to the curriculum being taught, being held back to focus and come up with the children who are doing worse in school. Now, we're not saying that the focus program can't save 1 or 2 of these children, but in the majority, the program does not work. And most teachers and principals are disgusted with the program. But because of a clause in their contract, they're not allowed to voice it publicly. But if you had access to their forums like I do, and if you go into a lot of focus schools weekly like I do, and if you speak with a lot of focus school teachers and social workers like I do, you would know that there's a very big problem when it comes to the focus school education. But not only that, the disciplinary graph that she puts up here does not work. It has not been working for the last decade under the PNM government. And if this template is kept, it still won't work. And I'll explain to you why. In most cases, when parents try, when these social workers in school, right? And she went on to say that she believes that these social workers' contracts aren't going to be renewed and not going to be, how should I say, continued. I made several calls last night concerning that, and none of them confirmed anything like that to me. But maybe she gets her information from somewhere else. But I am just saying this. Most of the social workers will tell you that this format to disciplining children in schools don't work. And the reason why it does not work is because when you try to get the children's parents to come in school to deal with the issues, they don't show up. The parents will quicker show up to beat another child on behalf of their child than actually come in the school to have a discussion with the principal or the teachers. This format where you talk to them now, then you give them a warning, then you give them a suspension, then it leads to expulsion. Along that long, lengthy, slow, dragged out process, you know who suffers? The children who are being bullied by these bullies. And you can play smart with stupidness all you like, but the bullies in the school are largely Black African children. They are in the majority. This format of discipline has been tried and it has been failing for the last decade. And only within the last few months of her being in governance, Minister Persad-Bissessar would have taken a stance to say, well, if we can't fix it this way, we'll send them Milat. Now, Kamla Persad-Bissessar wants to close down Milat. I am not in agreement with it. What I think should happen to Milat should be audited, right? And within the audit that takes place in Milat, it should be reformed to suit the needs of these so-called children coming from special needs schools, these so-called focus schools. Because she's trying to say that these children minds aren't developed enough to know what they're doing. They are. And the parents, the reason why the parents are not interested in coming in school to stop the problem is because in some cases, some of these parents can't deal with their own children, and that those children are even more belligerent, and in some cases, the parents are more belligerent also. But not only that, let's look at another aspect of this thing that she would have mentioned here.
Another area deals with parenting. And I'm saying this to us as PNM people. Recently, we heard the Prime Minister say that when our children misbehave in school, they're going to lock them up. Now, we are not closing our eyes to the fact that some of our children need to behave better. But I want to ask you, and I want you to ask yourself, because you see the videos. Some of us, we share the videos. I want to ask you, who do you see on those videos? Generally, who are the young people? And I'm saying to you as a Minister of Education, I've seen many of the files cross my desk, and many of those children who are misbehaving have PNM mothers, PNM grandmothers, PNM fathers. And I'm saying to us that as a party, we have to enter the fight to help them. And as the Women's League, we have a role in helping our PNM mothers parent even better than they are. We have a role in understanding when we have single mothers that they need help. They need to understand how to parent their children. They need to understand how to get supervision for their children when they are out working. They need to understand that it's not okay to leave a child unsupervised for long hours. And if nobody else is saying that to them and helping them with those needs, the PNM has to step in.
So we are dealing with the social aspect of it. The government of Trinidad and Tobago, the past government, would have known that there were social issues in the Afro-based community for decades, long before the last 9 that they were there. They know that. The question is, you say they've been trying to fix it. How? How have they been addressing the social issues in the community? Because given this speech here that Mrs. Persad-Bissessar said, proves to me that they are so out of touch, they don't even know what is going on in the ghetto community. Now, if you listen to what Mrs. Persad-Bissessar said there, she's trying to tell the PNM Women's League to focus on improving what is on the women in society and focus on the single moms and the single parent women in the communities. That is an absolutely absurd and wrong approach. And it shows how out of touch the PNM government is with their voter base, which is mostly poor African-based Black people. So let me sum it up in a summary here, very easy for you to understand. The problem that we are having in society is Black males. Black males who are in the majority. But not only that, to generalize and broad brush it, men in general in society is suffering. The backbone of any society are men, not women, men. If you look at both the Indo side of women's structure and the Afro-based structure of women in Trinidad and Tobago, you would see a clear-cut sign that women are excelling where men are failing in society. Women are excelling in education. Women are excelling in owning homes and infrastructure. Women are excelling in financial freedom, even in some cases where there are single moms. Now, we are not saying that there doesn't have single moms who are suffering and going through problems because they are single mom in society, but they're not in the majority. The biggest issue and the issue we need to look at is, why are these women becoming single moms to begin with? Why aren't men staying home and taking care of their family? Why are so many men resorting to crime? Why is the unemployment rate for men so high? Why is the education system failing young men in schools so drastically? What are the social issues? Because this is where the problem is coming from. The problem is coming from the men in society. But you see, they don't even understand that. So this is why you have a case where you have so many young men being bullies in school. This is the reason why you have so many young ladies being bullies in school. There is a social problem, but the PNM has never addressed that social problem in their communities. And to me, I genuinely think that there's a motive behind that. And I'll tell you what I think is the motive behind that. An educated voter base is a voter base that is critical thinkers. And I've always said, and let's use what they said in their election runner. They say that Kamla Persad-Bissessar didn't win the election because 100,000 voters didn't vote for the PNM. Those 100,000 voters, I would like to believe, are the educated voter base of the PNM. Not the gimme gang, not the so-called, like she said, the people who depend on the social grants and the social stuff from the government. No. The educated population of the PNM voter base is who chose not to vote for the Prime Minister, right? The reason why I am telling you the social issues are not fixed in the ghetto community is because the ghetto community is a more ignorant voter base. They are more uneducated. And I always say that the reason why voting is dumbed down to the point where you can just walk in a room and stamp a logo next to your party symbol is because it leaves space for the most uneducated person to vote. If voting required a means test, if voting required that you had to do a long division, math sum or a test, there is no way under the sun PNM could have run this country for so many years. Because an educated voter base would never put a government that has done the things that PNM have done in the era of PNM in governance. They would have never done it. The society would have been a lot better. But because the voter base is majority uneducated and vote just based on the fact that it's a black party, you have this problem taking place. And that is what is the problem. If you educate your people, if you fix the social problem in your community, if they learn what is something better, they will not feel a need to stay the way they are. And they would be able to assess that, listen, this is what the government is doing. I am not pleased about, and I will make changes based on that. So, with that being said, this thing where Kamla Persad-Bissessar wants to charge children for the way that they are behaving is a good idea. But if it was up to me, I wouldn't have done it. What I would have done is, and this is my solution to the problem, I would have come out with a community service program for children. And the community service program is this. From the time Friday afternoon, you no longer belong to your parents. You are wards of the state. The government owns you and owns your weekend. If you misbehave in school, books will be sent to the schools to take record of your behavior and how you are performing. Once you have been acting, belligerent in school, on weekends, your weekends, they will now be taken away from you by the government. You will meet with all the other bad children. There would be PTSC buses, whether we take 4 PTSC buses or 5 PTSC buses and assign them to the program. Your parents will now have an obligation to get you to these buses on weekends. And if your parents don't bring you to be disciplined, you'll be fined. When you are brought to these buses, you will now be taken to schools across Trinidad and Tobago. You will be given brooms, brushes, paintbrushes, scrubbing brushes, and you will clean your schools and you will maintain all the schools in Trinidad and Tobago during your weekends for being disrespectful or fighting or bullying in school. And we wouldn't stop there. We will have you now cleaning the streets of Trinidad and Tobago. You'll scrub the promenade. You'll scrub the borough of Arima. You'll scrub Point Fortin borough. You'll clean up your nation. You will know, you will learn what it is to be a productive citizen of your country. And if I know that I am a child that is giving trouble in school, and every weekend that I give trouble in school, the government of Trinidad and Tobago takes my weekends from me and makes me put on an orange jumper, a blue jumper, a green jumper, a red jumper, or a yellow jumper, give me a power washer, a scrubbing broom, and some soap, and tell me go clean a different part of my nation, I might want my weekends back. I might remember that I am not an adult and I'm a child, and I would start to act like a child. And I genuinely think that that is a better solution to actually just charging them or locking them up. And instead of closing down MyLat, what we could actually do with MyLat is reform MyLat and introduce that system and let MyLat run that system. We can bring out retired police and retired army officers, retired fire officers, and give them the job of supervising and disciplining these children. And we could even get retired teachers and principals who might be willing to teach education also during the weekends and take away these children's weekends from them. I guarantee you that if we remove these children's weekends from them, make them wards of the state on weekends, and give them community service for their actions in school, I am telling you, we are going to see a drastic cut in bullying immediately. Now, with that being said, we have reached the end of this video. If you liked it and you enjoy it, hit my like and subscribe. And most importantly, it lets YouTube know that I exist. Make a better version of yourself every day, Trinidad and Tobago. And thanks for the love and support so far. I'm out.